I walked in and my mother-in-law slapped my daughter across the face with malice. Not a playful tap, not a shocked reflex, a real slap, open palm, full force, the kind that lands with a sound you feel in your teeth. Laura stumbled sideways like the floor moved under her. Her hand flew to her cheek. Her eyes went wide and watery. And Betty, Daniel's mother, lifted her arm again like she meant to do it twice. I didn't think. I moved. Stop. My voice came out sharp and ugly. I crossed the room in 2 steps and got between them. I shoved Betty back, not hard enough to knock her down, but hard enough to make it clear. You don't get to hit my kid, not in my house, not ever. Betty's chest was heaving, her face was white, her mouth was trembling like she was fighting words she couldn't swallow. Laura was shaking. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me, like she was waiting for me to pick a side. And that's when my stomach dropped, because if my daughter was waiting for me to pick a side, it meant she'd already done something that made her doubt me. Jane. Betty said my name like it hurt. You have to listen to me. I looked from Betty to Laura. Laura wouldn't meet my eyes. She stared at the floor like it might open up and take her. My house was quiet except for the clock in the kitchen. Tick, tick, tick. Daniel wasn't home. Of course he wasn't. Men like Daniel always managed to be gone right when the damage surfaced, like the mess was something women should clean up among ourselves. Why did you just hit her? I said it slow. Controlled. My voice didn't shake. My hands did. Betty's eyes flashed. Then they filled. It wasn't the look of a monster enjoying power. It was the look of someone who'd been holding a lid down on a boiling pot and finally got burned. I shouldn't have done that, she said. I shouldn't have touched her. I just saw it, and I lost it. Saw what? I asked. Betty swallowed. Her lips pressed together like she was trying to stop herself. Then she looked straight at Laura. Tell your mother, she said. Tell her right now. Laura flinched like she'd been slapped again, even though nobody touched her this time. Mom, she whispered. That one word didn't sound like my Laura. It sounded like a little girl, and it twisted something in my chest. I turned to her. Baby, what is going on? Laura's eyes finally met mine, and in that second, I saw it. Fear, shame, and something else, a kind of stubborn defiance. Like she'd made a choice and didn't know how to survive the consequences. Betty's voice cracked. I found a pregnancy test. My brain did that thing where it tried to reject the sentence. Like it couldn't be real because I didn't want it to be real. A pregnancy test, I repeated. Betty nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks now. In her bathroom. I went upstairs because she said she felt sick. I brought her soup. I was trying to take care of her. I went into the ensuite, and it was right there, on the counter, like she forgot it was even there. Laura made a tiny sound, like a sob she tried to swallow. I stared at my daughter, waiting for her to say no, waiting for her to laugh and say it was a friend's or some stupid prank or anything that would put my life back where it was 10 minutes ago. Laura didn't say anything. My mouth went dry. Laura. She squeezed her eyes shut. I didn't plan it, she said. I swear I didn't plan it. Betty let out a broken sound. Tell her who? My heart thudded once, hard, like my body already knew and was trying to warn my mind. Who is it? I asked. Laura's voice came out tiny. Mom, please. Betty stepped forward and I put my arm out again, blocking her. Betty, back up. Betty nodded, like she remembered herself. Like she remembered I was the only one standing between her and doing something she'd regret for the rest of her life. Then she looked at me, and I watched her decide. She said it anyway. It's Daniel. The room didn't spin. I didn't faint. I didn't scream. I didn't fall apart in some dramatic way that would have made it feel like a movie. I just went still. It was like my body shut down every extra function so it could focus on one thing. Surviving this moment. No. I said, like the word could fix it. Laura started crying. Real crying. The kind that shakes your shoulders and makes you sound like you're breaking. Betty covered her mouth with her hand. Jane. I tried, she whispered. I tried to stop it. I stared at my daughter. Say that's not true. Laura's sobs got louder. She shook her head like she couldn't even make herself speak. And in that second, my mind did something cruel. It played back little moments from the last year, like a highlight reel of things I'd noticed and dismissed. Daniel buying Laura expensive luggage for her travel year. Daniel being oddly invested in where she'd go first. Paris, Tokyo, Santorini. Like he was writing the script. Daniel offering to help Laura set up a new bank account for her travel funds. Daniel being too comfortable walking around my house like it belonged to him. Like my marriage and my motherhood were just furniture he could move if he wanted. And Laura, my baby, my girl, getting quieter around me. Not rude, not mean. Just closed. I used to tell myself it was normal. She was 25. She was trying to build her own life. She didn't need her mom the way she used to. Now I realize she wasn't building her own life. She was being pulled into someone else's. I turned slowly to Betty. You said you tried. Betty wiped her face. I found out weeks ago, she said. I confronted them. I told them it was wrong. I told Daniel he was destroying everything. I told Laura she'd regret it. Laura whispered, Grandma, don't. Betty's eyes snapped to her. Don't call me that, she said, then immediately looked like she hated herself for saying it. She took a breath. I told them to stop because you were leaving soon anyway, she said, her voice pleading now, like she needed me to understand. You were going to travel. You were going to be gone. I thought if it just ended quietly, Jane would never have to know. You'd all move on. Jane would have her marriage. Laura would have her life. Daniel he would come back to his senses. I stared at her. And you didn't tell me. Betty's chin wobbled. I didn't know how, she said. I didn't want to be the person who destroyed your life. I let out a laugh that didn't sound like me. It sounded hollow. So you let my husband do it instead. Betty flinched. I was wrong, she whispered. I looked at Laura again. How long? Laura covered her face with both hands. Mom, please, how long? I said again. Laura's shoulders shook. Since last summer, I felt my throat tighten. Last summer. That meant there were holidays, family dinners, a weekend trip to Napa, a charity gala where Daniel held my waist and smiled for photos while my daughter stood 3 feet away in a dress he bought. I'd been living inside a lie and I didn't even know it. If you're watching this, I want you to understand something. I'm not naive. I'm not weak. I'm not one of those women who thinks love fixes everything. I raised Laura alone from the time I was 21. I worked 2 jobs. I built a life for us with my own hands. I missed sleep. I missed parties. I missed my 20s. I didn't miss my child. By the time I met Daniel, I wasn't desperate. I was stable. I was careful. And I still didn't see this coming. So if you've ever been betrayed in a way that made you question your own instincts, I need you to hear me. This isn't about intelligence. It's about someone choosing to hurt you while smiling in your face. And that's what Daniel had done. If you're the kind of person who likes these stories and you want more of them, please like and subscribe now. It helps more than you think. And if you've ever been blindsided by a betrayal that people try to excuse, leave a comment. I read them. I mean that. I took a breath. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. Where is he? I asked. Laura whispered, he's at the office. Of course he was. Daniel was 40, worth more than 50 million on paper, and he loved 2 things more than anything. Control, and being admired for it. Betty stepped closer, careful this time. Jane, she said softly, you need to sit down. I looked at her. Don't tell me what I need, I said. Betty nodded. You're right, she whispered. I'm sorry. I walked to the kitchen like my body was on autopilot. I opened the drawer where I kept the scissors, then closed it again. Not because I was going to do something violent. I just needed something to do with my hands. Laura followed me. Her face was blotchy. Her cheek was red. I wanted to cradle her. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to rewind time. Instead, I leaned on the counter and stared straight ahead. "Are you pregnant?" I asked. Laura nodded. Tears rolled down her face. "I just found out." "How far?" "I don't know. A few weeks, maybe." I closed my eyes. My daughter was pregnant by my husband. I said the sentence in my head like if I repeated it enough, it would become less real. It didn't. Betty stood in the doorway like she didn't deserve to come closer. "Jane," she said again. He told her he told her you weren't together." Laura's head snapped up. "He said you didn't want him anymore," she blurted. "He said you were done with him." I opened my eyes and looked at her. "Did you ask me?" Laura's face crumpled. "No," she whispered. That word landed heavy, because the truth was, Laura didn't just betray me. She made it easy for Daniel to do it, and that hurt in a different way, a deeper way. I asked quiet. Laura's hands twisted together. "He made me feel seen," she said, voice shaking. "He listened to me. He asked me what I wanted. He said I deserved more than some basic life. He said he could give me the world." I stared at her. By taking it from me, Laura sobbed harder. "I didn't think it was like that." I almost laughed again. Almost. "What did you think it was?" I asked. "A fairy tale." Betty's voice broke. "Jane, please." I turned to Betty. "How could you let him bring her into our home?" I said. "How could you watch this happen?" Betty shook her head. "I didn't," she said. "Not until I knew. And once I knew, I tried to stop it, by keeping it from me." Betty's shoulders sagged. "I was wrong," she said. "I know I was wrong." I stood up straight. I'd spent too many years surviving. Too many years being the responsible one. Too many years being the woman who swallowed hard things because there was always something else to do. I wasn't swallowing this. "I'm going to the office," I said. Laura's eyes widened. "Mom, please don't." I looked at her. "You don't get to say please anymore," I said. "Not today." Betty stepped forward. "Jane," she said, urgent. "If you go in there, he'll talk his way around it. He'll twist it." I nodded once. "He can try." I grabbed my coat, my keys, my phone. Then I stopped at the doorway and looked back at Laura. Really looked at her. "You're coming with me," I said. Laura panicked. "No," I said. "You're going to look him in the face while I ask him. And you're going to tell the truth." Betty whispered, "I'll stay here," like she was afraid I'd tell her to leave. I didn't. Not yet. I drove like I couldn't feel my hands on the steering wheel. Laura sat in the passenger seat, curled into herself. She kept wiping her face like she could erase what she'd done. I didn't speak, because if I did, I didn't trust what would come out. Daniel's office was one of those glass buildings that look like confidence, high ceilings, polished stone. A lobby that smelled like money. I'd been there plenty of times. I'd attended charity events. I'd smiled for photos. I'd played the role of the supportive wife. Today, I walked in like a storm. The receptionist looked up, startled. "Mrs." I didn't slow down. "Tell Daniel I'm here." She hesitated. Then she saw Laura behind me. Her eyes flicked. Something about that changed her expression. She picked up the phone fast. "Mr. Hartwell, your wife is here." I didn't sit. I didn't take water. I didn't do polite. I stood in the lobby and stared at the elevators. When Daniel stepped out, he looked annoyed first. Then he saw my face and his expression shifted into something practiced. Concern. Warmth. Performance. "Jane," he said, voice low like he didn't want a scene. "What's going on?" Then he saw Laura. His eyes widened for half a second. Just half. Then he recovered. "Laura," he said like he was surprised, like he hadn't been inside her for months. My stomach turned. I stepped forward. "Tell me," I said. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Not here." I didn't care. "Tell me," I said again. Daniel glanced around at the lobby. People were watching now. Of course they were. Nothing draws a crowd like wealthy people bleeding. He forced a smile. Let's go upstairs. I shook my head. No, I said. Right here, right now. Tell me why your mother just hit my daughter. Daniel's smile faltered. My mother hit her. I stared at him. Don't act confused. He looked at Laura. His eyes softened in a way that made my skin crawl. Laura. What happened? Laura whispered. She found the test. Daniel's shoulders dropped like he'd been expecting it. Like this was always going to happen, and he'd been waiting for the moment. He looked back at me. Jane, he said gently. We can talk about this privately. I took a breath. My voice came out steady. Are you sleeping with my daughter? The lobby went silent. Even the receptionist stopped typing. Daniel's eyes flicked left and right like he was measuring the damage. Then he looked at me and didn't deny it. That was the moment something in me hardened. He didn't deny it because he didn't think he needed to. He thought he could explain it. He thought he could make it reasonable. Yes, he said, quiet, controlled. Like he was admitting he'd eaten the last cookie. Laura started crying again. I stared at him. How long? He hesitated, then shrugged, a literal shrug. Since last summer. I nodded once, like I was taking notes. Is she pregnant? Daniel's gaze went to Laura's stomach like he owned it. She might be, he said. Laura sobbed, I am. Daniel exhaled like this was inconvenient. I felt heat rise in my chest, but I kept my voice calm. Explain it, I said. Daniel's eyes narrowed. His voice went colder. She's an adult, he said. You know that. I stared at him. She's my child. Daniel tilted his head like I was being dramatic. She's 25, he said, and frankly, Jane, you and I have been struggling. I blinked. Don't. He kept going. And then he said the line you don't come back from. Well, since your menopause, we've hit a dry patch and I have needs. The lobby didn't just go silent. It went dead. Like the building itself stopped breathing. My body went cold. I felt every woman within earshot react, even if they didn't move. Even if they didn't say a word. I felt it like electricity. Because every woman over 40 knows exactly what that sentence is. It's not a confession. It's a punishment. It's a man telling you your body made you disposable, so he replaced you. And he chose my daughter to do it. I stared at Daniel and smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was done. Thank you, I said softly. Daniel frowned. For what? For saying it out loud, I said. For showing everyone exactly who you are. He glanced around again, finally realizing how bad it looked. Jane, stop, he hissed. You're making a scene. I leaned closer. My voice stayed low. Daniel, I said. You just ended your own life. You just don't know it yet. Laura whispered, Mom. I turned to her. You're coming home, I said. Daniel's voice snapped. No. He said. She's not. I looked back at him. Watch me. He stepped forward like he was going to grab her. Like he had the right. I lifted my phone and tapped once. A security guard I recognized from past events moved closer. Not Daniel's personal bodyguard. Building security. Neutral. Watching. Daniel froze. I looked him dead in the eyes. Touch her, and you'll regret it, I said. Then I turned and walked out with my daughter. Behind me, I heard whispers starting. Phones coming out. A receptionist staring like she'd just witnessed the fall of a god. In the car, Laura shook so hard her teeth clicked. I didn't think he'd say that, she whispered. I stared at the road. Neither did I said. We got home and Betty was still there. She stood up like she was about to speak. Then she saw my face and stopped. I walked into my kitchen, set my keys down, and opened my laptop. Laura stared at me. Mom, she whispered. What are you doing? I'm taking him apart, I said. Betty's eyes widened. Jane. I looked at her. If you're truly on my side, I said, then you're going to tell me Everything. Betty nodded fast. I will. Laura's voice shook. Mom, are you going to ruin him? I turned to my daughter. My voice was quiet. He ruined you, I said. He ruined me. He did it under my roof, Laura cried. I know. I stared at her. Do you? I asked. Do you really? She nodded, sobbing. I believe she was remorseful. I also believed remorse didn't undo what she did. Both things can be true. Here's the part Daniel never understood. My name wasn't on his company's building. My face wasn't on the magazine covers. I wasn't the one people invited to speak at conferences. But I was the one who kept the machine running. Before Daniel, I worked in finance. Not glamorous finance. The kind where you read contracts, catch errors, and stop disasters before they happen. When Daniel and I got serious, he told me he didn't want my help. He wanted to be the man who provided. Then he found out I was good at what I did. Really good. He didn't put me on the website. He didn't make me public. He didn't want people thinking I was a partner. He gave me a title that sounded like nothing, operations advisor, and then he handed me access, accounts, documents, vendor contracts, investment memos, board packets, because he trusted me, because he never once imagined I'd turn those same tools on him. I opened a folder on my laptop that Daniel had never noticed. He thought it was wedding planning, or travel ideas, or some boring thing wives do. Inside were PDFs, agreements, amendments, side letters, a post-nup he insisted on signing 2 years ago because he said he wanted to protect both of us. He'd framed it like romance. It was actually a trap. Just not for me. Betty sat at my table like she was bracing for impact. Tell me, I said. How did you find out? Betty swallowed. I saw messages, she said, on his phone. He left it on the counter when he came to my house. I picked it up to hand it to him and a message popped up. From Laura. Laura squeezed her eyes shut. Betty's voice trembled. I confronted him. He tried to talk me down. He said you were cold now. He said you were done being a wife. I let out a breath through my nose. Of course he did. Betty nodded. I went to Laura. I begged her to stop, she said. I told her she'd regret it. I told her she'd lose you. Laura whispered. I thought I could handle it. I looked at her. What did you think would happen? I asked. That I'd just accept it. Laura shook her head. I don't know, she whispered. I didn't think about you. Not really. I thought about getting away. That honesty hurt more than a lie. I nodded once. Okay, I said. Then we're going to think about me now. I scrolled through the post-nup. There it was. A morality clause. Daniel insisted on it because he believed it protected him from a gold digger narrative if I ever left. He wanted to prove he wasn't the bad guy. It stated that if either spouse engaged in an extramarital relationship that caused reputational damage, financial harm, or public scandal, the injured spouse could trigger expedited separation terms. But here was the part Daniel didn't read closely. It didn't just apply to divorce. It applied to business affiliations. Because Daniel had tied my marital status into how his investors viewed his stability. He literally used our marriage as a credibility asset. I looked up at Betty. Did he ever tell you why he wanted that clause? Betty shook her head. No. I smiled again. Because he thought he could never be the villain, I said. Laura whispered, Mom, what does that mean? It means he just handed me a lever, I said. And I'm about to pull it. I started making calls. Not frantic calls. Calm ones. First was my attorney. Not a cheap divorce lawyer. A woman I'd known for years. A corporate attorney who specialized in governance, reputation risk, and partner disputes. The kind of lawyer rich men fear because she doesn't get emotional. She gets results. When she answered, I said one sentence. My husband is sleeping with my daughter and she's pregnant. There was a pause. Then she said, calm as a blade, do you want to burn him to the ground? Yes, I said. Good, she replied. Do exactly what I say. Do not warn him. Do not threaten him. Do not give him a chance to prepare. I looked at Laura. This is the moment where you decide if you're going to keep protecting him, I said. Laura's face crumpled. I'm not, she whispered. I'm done. Then you're going to tell the truth, I said. To whoever needs it. Betty's voice shook. Jane, she said. What are you going to do? I looked at her. I'm going to take his money, I said. I'm going to take his reputation, I said. And I'm going to take his access to anything he thinks he owns, including this baby. Laura flinched. I softened my voice just a little. Not as punishment for you, I said, as protection from him. Laura nodded, crying. That night Daniel didn't come home. He texted. We need to talk. He called. Jane, don't do anything stupid. I didn't respond, because the first thing my attorney told me was simple. Silence is power. 2 days later, the first domino fell. Daniel's biggest partner, a private equity group that loved his family man image, called an emergency meeting. They didn't call Daniel first. They called me. Because Daniel didn't know the partner agreement listed me as the point of contact for reputational risk disclosures. He signed it that way because he thought it made him look stable, because he thought I'd always protect him. When the representative said, Mrs. Hartwell, we've received information that suggests serious misconduct, I didn't pretend. I said, it's worse than you think, I said, and I have documentation. Then I sent the package. I didn't send feelings. I sent evidence. Time-stamped messages. Transaction records showing Daniel used corporate funds to pay for Laura's travel bookings under fake vendor names. A reimbursement request for consulting services that was actually a luxury rental for a weekend trip. My weekend trip, the one I thought was a romantic getaway, and then the pièce de résistance, a recording. Not of anything explicit, not of anything graphic, just Daniel's voice in the lobby. Well, since your menopause, we've hit a dry patch and I have needs. And my response, thank you for saying it out loud. If you've made it this far, I want you to pause and comment right now. Have you ever heard a man excuse cruelty with biology, with age, with entitlement? And if you have, what did you wish you could have done in that moment? Because I'm about to tell you exactly what I did. By the end of that week, Daniel's partners didn't stand by him. They ran. They didn't want their names next to his. They didn't want their wives reading headlines about a man worth 50 million sleeping with his wife's daughter. They didn't want investors calling. They didn't want the whisper networks. They didn't want the jokes. And Daniel didn't understand it at first. He thought money protected him. He forgot money is cowardly. It stays where it's safe. The partner group froze funding. They triggered a morality and reputational breach clause in their agreement with his company. They demanded an independent audit. They demanded Daniel step back from day-to-day leadership until it was complete. Daniel called me at midnight. His voice was rage wrapped in panic. What the hell did you do? I didn't raise my voice. I told the truth, I said. You're destroying me. He snapped. I smiled into the dark. No, I said. You did that in the lobby. He hissed. You can't prove anything. I don't have to, I said. They don't need a conviction to drop you. They just need a reason. Then I hung up. Laura stayed in her room for days. She didn't eat much. She didn't speak much. She looked like someone who'd finally realized the man who made her feel special was just using her as a weapon. One night she came into my bedroom, eyes swollen. Mom, she whispered. I can't keep it. I sat up slowly. The baby. She nodded. I can't, she said. I can't be tied to him forever. I can't have him in my life. I can't have him showing up with lawyers and money and calling it love. I watched her, my daughter. My heart. I want adoption, she whispered. Closed adoption. I want it done right. I want the baby safe. And I don't want him anywhere near it. A strange thing happened inside me. Relief, grief, rage, all at once. I nodded. Okay, I said. We'll do it the right way. Laura burst into tears. Are you going to hate me forever? I stared at her. This is the part people don't understand about mothers. We can be furious and still love. We can feel betrayed and still protect. We can hold two truths in the same hands. I don't know what forever looks like right now, I said honestly, but I'm still your mother, and you're still my daughter. She sobbed into my shoulder like she was 25 and 5 years old at the same time. Daniel showed up the next morning like he owned the driveway. He walked right up to the door. He didn't knock. He used his key. Except the locks had been changed. He jiggled the handle like an idiot, then started pounding. "Jane," he shouted, "open the door." I walked to the door and looked through the glass. He looked good. He always looked good. That was his gift. To look like a man who should be trusted. I opened it just enough to speak. "You're not coming in," I said. Daniel's eyes flashed. "This is my house too." I smiled. "No," I said. "It's not." He blinked. "What?" I held up a folder. "The deed. The home was in my name. Always had been. Daniel told people he bought it. He let them believe it. He liked the image of being the man who provided. I never corrected anyone because I didn't need applause. Now I needed leverage." Daniel's face tightened. "That doesn't matter," he snapped. "We're married. It matters today," I said. He leaned closer. "Where's Laura?" I didn't flinch. "Not your concern." His voice dropped. "She's carrying my child." My blood went cold. "Do not say that like it's a prize," I said. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "I have rights." I nodded slowly. "You should talk to your lawyer," I said. "If you can still afford one after this week." His jaw clenched. "You think you're clever." I smiled, small. "I think you're sloppy." He hissed, "Open the door." I didn't. He tried a different tactic, softer. "Jane," he said, "this got out of hand. We can fix it." I stared at him. "You can't fix what you are," I said. His eyes hardened again. "So that's it. You're going to ruin me over sex." I laughed once. Short, sharp. "This isn't over sex," I said. "This is over entitlement. This is over humiliation. This is over you using my body and my age as an excuse to betray me with my child." He snapped. "She's not a child. She's my child," I said. "And you knew that. You picked her because you wanted to hurt me." Daniel's nostrils flared. Then he said something even worse, like he couldn't help himself. "You were done," he said. "You were old news. You made me feel like a roommate." I leaned closer, voice calm. "Then you should have left," I said. "You should have divorced me. You should have walked out like a man. Instead, you crawled into my daughter's life like a parasite." Daniel's face contorted with rage. And then, because he was Daniel, he tried to threaten me with money. "You're going to regret this," he said. "You have no idea what I can do." I smiled, and I watched his confidence crack when he realized. I did know, because I'd already started. That afternoon the first article hit, not a gossip blog, not some cheap tabloid, a business publication. They didn't name Laura. They didn't name me. They named Daniel. CEO under investigation amid misconduct allegations. Funding frozen. Board review triggered. The comments were brutal. The whispers were worse. Daniel called again, voice frantic now. "You went to the press." "I didn't have to," I said. "They came to you." He shouted, "This is defamation." I said, "It's documentation." 2 days later, Daniel's board removed him temporarily. Then, temporarily became permanent when more partners pulled out, and the audit found what I already knew. Daniel didn't just cheat, he stole. He used company money like it was his personal wallet. He hid it in fake vendor accounts. He submitted reimbursements with fabricated invoices. And because he was so busy chasing his ego, he got lazy. He used the same patterns, the same amounts, the same timing. He left a trail any competent person could follow. And I was more than competent. Daniel's company didn't collapse in slow motion. It folded like wet paper. Partners abandoned him. Clients canceled. Employees quietly updated their resumes. People who used to laugh at his jokes stopped answering his calls. He went from visionary to liability overnight. And when the money started bleeding, so did his friendships. That's the part I want everyone to remember. A lot of people don't love you. They love the version of you that benefits them. Daniel learned that the hard way. Betty called me one night, voice trembling. He came to my house. She whispered, He's not okay. I sat on my bed, staring at the wall. He should have thought about that before, I said. Betty swallowed. Jane, she said, I'm not asking you to save him. I'm asking you to keep yourself safe. He's desperate. I closed my eyes. Betty was right. Daniel wasn't dangerous when he was winning. He was dangerous when he was losing. So I did the next thing. I got ahead of him. A restraining order request, not for drama, for safety, because his behavior was escalating and he was showing up uninvited. Security upgraded. A formal notice served, and one more thing. A quiet message to every person Daniel respected. Not emotional, not messy, a simple sentence. If he contacts you to discredit me, ask him why he used corporate money to fund my daughter's travel and why he blamed menopause for his choices. Let him explain it himself. By the time Daniel realized nobody was going to fight his battles for him, he tried to latch on to the last thing he thought he could control, the baby. He filed paperwork to establish paternity rights. He tried to position Laura as unstable, confused, influenced by me. He even sent Laura flowers, a ridiculous arrangement, white roses, a card that said, "We can be a family. Don't let her take this from us." Laura threw up when she read it. That's when I knew something had shifted in her for real. She looked at me, eyes hollow. "He's not in love," she whispered. "He's panicking." I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "He's losing his mirror." The adoption process wasn't quick. It wasn't clean. It was emotional. It was heavy, but we did it carefully. Laura chose a closed adoption with a vetted couple. Not random. Not rushed. People who wanted a child. People who had been waiting years. People with stable jobs and boring routines and the kind of quiet patience that doesn't flinch. Laura didn't choose them because they were perfect. She chose them because they felt safe, and because safe suddenly mattered more than anything. Daniel, of course, did not care about safe. Daniel cared about control. The first time he realized Laura was serious about adoption, he didn't cry. He didn't beg. He didn't apologize. He threatened. He sent her a text that read like a lawyer wrote it. "If you attempt to place my child for adoption without my consent, I will pursue all legal remedies available and expose the truth about what you are." Expose the truth, like he hadn't already done that in the lobby. Laura showed me the text with shaking hands. "I'm scared," she whispered. I took her phone and stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then I handed it back and said, "Good. Save it. Forward it to my attorney." Laura blinked. That's it, I said, "because he's building my case for me." That night, Betty came over with a folder. Not dramatic, not messy. Just a folder. I went through my phone. She said, voice small. I printed everything. Messages, calls, dates, the day I confronted him, the day I confronted her. I wrote it all down because I knew he'd lie. She slid the folder across my table like she was passing me something sacred. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," she whispered, "but I'm not letting him rewrite this." I looked at her, and for the first time since the slap, I believed her completely. "Thank you," I said. Betty swallowed. "He's calling me a traitor." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just said, he calls everyone a traitor when they stop obeying him. That week, Daniel's world shrank. His office keys were deactivated. His corporate card stopped working. His personal banker started sending please call emails that sounded polite but smelled like panic. And then the last humiliating piece. One of his closest friends, a man who used to host him on private golf weekends, unfollowed him publicly. It sounds stupid if you've never lived in that world. But in Daniel's world, it was a guillotine. Because it told everyone watching, I'm not standing next to him when the knives come out. Daniel tried to plug the leak by buying loyalty. He offered people deals, promises, future payouts. But the thing about a scandal like this is, it makes everyone picture their own wife reading headlines. It makes everyone imagine their daughters. And suddenly Daniel's money wasn't attractive. It was radioactive. Laura didn't leave the house much. When she did, she wore sunglasses even on cloudy days. Not to look cool, to hide from the shame, to hide from the stares she imagined. One afternoon, I found her sitting on the floor of her bedroom, back against the bed, holding her stomach like she was trying to keep herself together. "I ruined everything," she whispered. I sat down across from her. "I didn't touch her. Not yet. Because when someone is drowning in guilt, touch can feel like forgiveness. And we weren't there." "You didn't ruin everything," I said. "You ruined something." "Yes, you did, but you're not going to let him ruin the rest." She looked up at me, eyes glossy. "You still hate me." I nodded once. "Some days, yes." She flinched. I kept my voice steady. "And some days I just love you so much it makes me sick. Both things are true. If you want me to be honest, I will be." Laura nodded slowly, like she deserved it. "I do," she whispered. "I want you to be honest. Then be honest with me," I said. "Did he ever talk about getting you pregnant on purpose?" Her face went pale. She shook her head too fast. "No." "I mean," he said. She swallowed. "He said it would be a way to make sure we were real. That it would stop me from leaving." I felt my throat tighten. "That's what he said." I repeated. Laura nodded, tears falling. "He said if I was carrying his baby, I'd stop thinking about traveling. I'd stop thinking about leaving him." I closed my eyes. There it was. Not romance. A cage. I opened my eyes and looked at her. "That wasn't love," I said. "That was possession." Laura nodded, sobbing. I finally reached over and took her hand. "Listen to me," I said. "You are not going to be his possession. Not you. Not that baby. Not anyone." Daniel's attorney sent a letter 2 days later. It was full of words like parental rights and undue influence and defamation and reputational harm. It tried to scare us into compliance. My attorney read it and laughed. Not a happy laugh. The kind of laugh you make when someone brings a plastic knife to a gunfight. She looked at me and said, "He is panicking." "Good." Then she slid a document across my table. A petition. Not just for divorce, for emergency relief, exclusive use of the home, no contact orders, temporary financial restraints, a request for a protective order based on escalating harassment and coercion, and a separate filing related to the pregnancy. Because here is the thing Daniel didn't realize. When you behave like a predator in a respectable suit, the court doesn't need you convicted of anything. It needs a pattern. It needs credible witnesses. It needs documented coercion. And Daniel was providing all of that, in writing, like he couldn't help himself. The hearing wasn't televised. It wasn't dramatic. But it was public enough. Because the courthouse lobby is its own kind of stage. Daniel walked in wearing a perfect suit, and that controlled expression he used when he wanted to look calm. He didn't look at me. He looked past me, like I was a problem he planned to manage. Laura came in with me. Not because I wanted to punish her, because I wanted her to see what adult consequences look like. I wanted her to watch a judge look at Daniel and not be charmed. Betty came too. She sat behind us, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles went white. Daniel's attorney tried to paint Laura as unstable, young, confused, manipulated by her mother. He tried to imply I was angry and vindictive and using feminist rhetoric to destroy a successful man. The judge didn't react, not one eyebrow. Then my attorney stood. She didn't talk about my feelings. She talked about facts. She walked the judge through the lobby incident, the witness statements, the security report, the text messages, the financial records. She played the audio, not the whole thing, just enough. "Well, since your menopause, we've hit a dry patch and I have needs." I watched the judge's expression change. It wasn't outrage. It was disgust, professional disgust, like something sticky had touched her. Daniel stared straight ahead, like he didn't understand why that sentence mattered, because in his mind, it was just a justification. To the judge, it was a confession of entitlement. Then my attorney said something that made the room turn colder. Your Honor, he didn't just exploit the marital relationship. He exploited a vulnerable family dynamic. He used money, proximity, and power to isolate a young woman from her mother. He used corporate funds to facilitate it, and now he is using legal threats to control the outcome of a pregnancy. Daniel's attorney objected. The judge overruled it. And then Betty stood up, voice shaking, and said, I tried to stop him. The judge turned to her. Ma'am, are you Daniel Hartwell's mother? Yes, Betty whispered, and you are here willingly. Yes. Betty took a breath, and for the first time, she looked directly at Daniel. I confronted him weeks ago, she said. He told me Jane was cold now. He told me he had needs. He told me Laura was leaving soon and it would end. He lied, and he kept going. Daniel's jaw clenched. Betty's voice cracked. I didn't tell Jane because I thought I could make it stop quietly. I thought I could save her. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Laura sobbed beside me, silently, like she didn't want the judge to see her break. My attorney handed the judge the folder. A timeline. Dates. Messages. A printed screenshot of Daniel telling Betty, don't involve Jane. She'll make it ugly. The judge read it for 30 seconds. Then she looked up. Mr. Hartwell, she said. Daniel stood. He finally put on his calm voice. Yes, Your Honor. The judge stared at him like she was studying a stain. You are hereby ordered to have no direct contact with Ms. Hartwell, she said, meaning me. And no contact with Ms. Laura, she added. All communication will be through counsel. You will vacate the marital residence. You will not attempt to access it. You will not attempt to contact her place of work or her family. You will not contact her in any way. Daniel's attorney started to speak. The judge held up a hand. And regarding the pregnancy, she continued, voice even. I am granting the temporary relief requested. Ms. Laura will receive independent counsel. Any attempt to coerce her will be treated as contempt. Daniel's face went blank, not angry. Blank, like someone had unplugged his power. Because for the first time, a woman in authority told him no. In the courthouse lobby afterward, Daniel finally looked at me. His eyes were bloodshot. His voice came out low. You're enjoying this. I shook my head. No, I said. I'm surviving it. He scoffed. You're acting like a victim. I stared at him. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, you should have divorced me. You should have left. You should have done anything except this. His lip curled. You were done. There it is again, I said softly. What? That entitlement, I said. The belief that, because you didn't get everything you wanted, you were allowed to take it from someone else, even if it was my daughter. He opened his mouth. I didn't let him speak. I don't have a husband anymore, I said. You made sure of that. But you also don't have a life anymore. His eyes flashed. I can rebuild. I nodded once. Maybe, I said, but you'll rebuild without the mask, and that's the part you can't stand. I walked away. He didn't follow. Not because he didn't want to, because he couldn't. The business collapse finished him. The audit didn't just find sloppy reimbursements. It found intent, a pattern of personal indulgence disguised as corporate expense. Daniel tried to claim it was normal executive spending. But normal executive spending doesn't involve fake vendor names that map back to hotel bookings and consulting invoices that lead to private villas. The board didn't just remove him. They filed their own action. They needed to prove they weren't complicit, so they made him the sacrificial offering. And then the prosecutors got interested. Not because they cared about my marriage. Because when corporate money gets moved through fake vendors, people start asking about fraud. Daniel's attorney tried to settle. He offered to resign quietly. He offered to pay a fine. He offered to disappear. But the investors wanted blood. They'd been embarrassed. And embarrassed wealthy people don't want quiet. They want distance. They want a headline that says, "We handled it." So the headline came: "Charges filed in corporate fraud probe." I saw it on my phone while I was making coffee. Just the words. Just the photo. Daniel, looking like a man who finally realized money doesn't protect you from consequences. Laura saw it too. She sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the screen like she was watching a stranger die. "I didn't know he was this," she whispered. "He was always this," I said. "He just aimed it somewhere else before." Betty called that afternoon, voice shaking. "They're talking about him on the news," she said. "I know," I replied. Betty whispered, "He's calling me from different numbers." My stomach tightened. "Don't answer." "I'm not," she said quickly. "I'm not. Jane, he sounds unhinged. I've already filed," I said. "You should too." There was a pause. Then Betty said softly, "I'm proud of you." I didn't answer right away, because part of me wanted to reject it, and part of me wanted to crumble from the relief of someone finally saying it. "Thank you," I said. A month later, Laura met with the adoptive couple again. I didn't go into the room with her. That was her choice to make. But I waited outside. She came out with her eyes swollen and her hands shaking. "He's going to fight it," she whispered. "Let him," I said. She looked at me like she didn't understand. I leaned closer. "Laura," I said, "he can't fight what he can't access. He can't bully what he can't touch." She swallowed. "He has money." I nodded. "Not like he used to," I said. "And he's bleeding legal bills. And he's bleeding reputation. And he's bleeding allies." Then I said the one thing I knew would steady her. "And you're not alone." The next court date wasn't about the divorce. It was about the adoption process and Daniel's attempt to assert control. He showed up looking thinner. Still polished. Still trying. But the shine was gone. His attorney tried to argue that Laura was being coerced by me, that I was forcing adoption as revenge. The judge didn't even look impressed. Laura's independent counsel stood and said, "Clearly, Ms. Laura is making this decision to protect herself and the child from coercion and future litigation." Daniel's attorney tried to paint him as a stable father. Then my attorney stood and asked for permission to submit a new exhibit. The judge granted it. It was a voicemail Daniel left Laura 2 nights earlier. Not a threat, exactly. Worse, a manipulation. He called her baby. He called her his girl. He told her she owed him loyalty because he gave her a life she didn't deserve. He said, "If you do this, I'll make sure your mother regrets it." The judge listened with a still face. Then she clicked the recording off and looked at Daniel. "You are not helping your own case," she said. Daniel's face tightened. "She is my child's mother." The judge stared. "She is a young woman you had an affair with under your wife's roof," she said. "Do not dress it up with language that makes you feel better." The courtroom went quiet. Laura started crying, not loud, not dramatic, just tears falling like her body was finally letting the truth in. Daniel's shoulders dropped. Then he did something that shocked me. He looked at Laura and said, "You're really going to do this to me?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I ruined your life." Not, "I hurt your mother." Just, "You're going to do this to me." And in that moment, Laura looked at him the way I used to look at him, like she finally saw what he was. She wiped her face, took a breath, and said, "You did this to you." Daniel blinked, like he'd never heard anyone say that to him before. Then Laura turned to the judge and said, voice shaking but clear, "I want the adoption to proceed. I want it closed. I want no contact. I want the baby safe. I want him gone." Daniel's face twisted, and for a second I thought he might explode. Instead, he just sat down like a man whose strings had been cut. The judge granted the relief needed to move forward. Daniel didn't win. He didn't get to play father. Not because the world was fair, because he couldn't stop treating people like property long enough to convince anyone he was safe. After that, Daniel tried one last move. He tried to show up at my house again. Not the front door, the back gate, like a thief. The security camera caught him standing there in the dark, talking to himself, trying the latch like he still belonged. I didn't open the door. I didn't speak to him. I sent the footage to my attorney, and my attorney sent it to the court. 2 days later, the judge upgraded the order. No proximity. No harassment. Immediate consequences for any breach. Daniel stopped coming around. Not because he suddenly respected boundaries, because he finally believed consequences were real. The divorce finalized fast after that. Not because Daniel cooperated, because his financial empire was already in free fall, and the court had no patience left for his games. His $50 million turned out to be a house of mirrors, assets tied to loans, loans tied to reputation, reputation tied to investor confidence, and investor confidence had evaporated. He lost properties. He lost equity positions. He lost board seats. He lost the kind of friends who used to clap him on the back and call him a genius. And then he lost the one thing he thought he could keep no matter what, his image. Because even when the legal details were complicated, the story was simple. A wealthy man betrayed his wife with her daughter, then blamed menopause like it was an excuse. People didn't need to understand finance to hate that. They just needed to be human. Betty sold her house and moved into a small condo near a park. Not because she was broke, because she didn't want to live in a place Daniel associated with access. She told me, quietly, I don't want him showing up and acting like I owe him comfort. I nodded. You don't, I said. Laura stayed with me through the pregnancy. She didn't post about it. She didn't glamorize it. She didn't pretend it was anything but heavy. There were nights she cried in the shower so I wouldn't hear. There were mornings she sat at the kitchen table staring into her coffee like she was trying to decide if she deserved to keep living. I didn't lecture her. I didn't punish her. I just kept showing up. Because the one thing Daniel never understood was this: mothers can be furious and still protect. We can hold boundaries and still love. We can refuse to forgive and still refuse to abandon. The day the baby was born, I didn't call Daniel. No one did. Laura held the baby for a while, quiet and trembling. Then she looked at me and whispered, I want them to have a good life. They will, I said. The adoptive couple came later, eyes red, hands shaking, grateful in a way that hurt to look at. Laura didn't make a speech. She didn't do a dramatic handoff. She kissed the baby's forehead once, then handed the baby over like she was setting down something sacred. Then she turned and collapsed into my arms. I held her. And for the first time in months I felt something unclench. Not peace, not forgiveness, but finality. Daniel tried again after the adoption was complete. Not through court, through ego. He sent me an email from an address I didn't recognize. It was long. It was full of self-pity. He said I was bitter. He said I was vindictive. He said I ruined a family. He said, you could have just forgiven me. I read it once. Then I deleted it, because he still didn't get it. You can't forgive someone who isn't sorry. You can't rebuild with someone who thinks consequences are cruelty. You can't co-parent with someone who views people as leverage. Months passed, then a year. Daniel took a plea deal, not because he suddenly found morals, because he wanted the bleeding to stop. He lost his passport for a while. He paid restitution. He was barred from serving in certain leadership roles. He became the cautionary tale men tell quietly when they want to scare other men into behaving. And the funniest part was, Daniel hated that more than jail. Because jail is private. A cautionary tale is forever. Laura went to therapy. Not because someone told her to. Because she couldn't carry the weight alone anymore. She got a job in another city. She started traveling again, slowly, in a way that felt like freedom instead of escape. We didn't talk about Daniel much, not because it didn't matter, because it mattered too much, and we were tired of him taking up space. One night, about 18 months after it all started, Laura came home to visit, and we sat on the porch with blankets and tea. She looked at me and said, quietly, I'm sorry. I didn't answer right away, because I'd heard sorry before, but not like this. This one wasn't asking to be absolved. This one was just grief. I know, I said. Laura's eyes filled. Do you think you'll ever trust me again? I stared out at the dark yard. I don't know, I said honestly, but I'm still here, and that's not nothing. Laura nodded, tears sliding down her face. Then she whispered, "Thank you for not letting him keep me." I turned to her and said the truth. "I didn't do it because you deserved it," I said. "I did it because he didn't." Laura laughed through tears. "That's very you." "It is," I said. And that was the moment I knew we might survive this. Not as the same people, but as people who lived through something ugly and refused to let it define the rest of our lives. If you're watching this and you've been betrayed in a way that made you feel disposable, I want you to hear me. You're not disposable. You're not outdated. You're not a phase someone can outgrow and replace. And if someone tries to blame your body, your age, your seasons of life for their cruelty, that is not an explanation. It's an indictment. My name is Jane, and this is what happened when I was pushed beyond restraint. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this story.